And Ms. Leon, you can proceed.
Testing. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, fellow members. I'm Xochitl Leon, Chair of the California Board of Accountancy's Legislative Committee, and I'd like to call our meeting to order. I would like to note that CBA members may view any committee meeting. They do not sit only as an observer and will remain as an attendee until their scheduled committee meeting, at which time they will be moved to the participant panel. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Ms. Reed to take roll call and establish a quorum. When Ms. Reed reads your name, unmute your microphone and state your name. Please remember to mute your microphone once you have stated your name.
George Famlet.
George Famlet, present.
Carrie Ann Cheryl Hines.
Good morning, present.
Xochitl Leon.
Xochitl Leon, present.
Ariel Pay.
Good morning, present.
Katrina Salazar.
Katrina Salazar, present.
Okay, and we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I would like to thank the CBA staff and the solid team for their assistance in facilitating this virtual meeting. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. The mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. Before we convene, please be advised that the meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-2920. Members of the public interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. All lines are currently on mute. As I facilitate this meeting to allow for the proceeding in an orderly manner, lines will remain on mute until I direct staff to open them for public comments. I will announce when we're accepting public comments on the various issues, and staff will open the lines as appropriate. 5 minutes will be allotted to each individual providing comments. I would also like to remind committee members and others speaking during the meeting to please use the raise hand feature if you wish to make a motion, ask a question, or make a comment. I will ask for a little patience as I keep scrolling up and down to see if you raised your hand. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure the committee has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. I appreciate everyone's understanding. All right, so moving on to agenda item 1 for public comment. At this time, we will move to agenda item 1, which is public comment, as I just mentioned, for items not on the main meeting agenda. The moderator will provide general instructions and then open it up for the public comment. Please go ahead.
This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. The instructions are being referenced on the screen and will be referenced each time open up for public comment. Ms. Leon, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Hearing no public comments for agenda item 1, we're proceeding to agenda item number 2, approval of the minutes. We will be reviewing now the approval of the minutes for January 16th, 2020 Legislative Committee meeting. If any member would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 16, 2020 Legislative Committee meeting, please do so by using the hand raise feature and wait to be called upon. And bear with me because now I am testing this. Okay, I see Ms. Katrina Salazar.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for January 16th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Do we have a second? Mr. Pei?
Yes, I'd like to second.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or discussion? See, Mr. Familet, I think your hand's up. It's gone. Okay. Hearing no comments, can we call for the vote? No, before I do that, we want to give the opportunity for the public to provide any comments. I turn it over to, there we go. Thank you.
This is the mod. Sorry, Ms. Leon, did you ask us to open for a public comment?
Yes, please.
This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. The instructions are being referenced on your screen. Ms. Leon, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Ms. Reed, if you don't mind proceeding with calling for the vote.
George Familet, George Familet,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Abstain.
Ariel Pei,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Abstain. They're lovely, but I was not at the meeting.
and Yin Tu.
Also abstain, I was not at the meeting. Not appointed yet.
It's fine. Abstain goes to whatever the positive vote. Okay, and the motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3. California Board of Accountancy 2021 Legislative Tracking Chart. Mr. Ibarra, please go ahead with the presentation on this agenda item.
Ms. Leon, if I could just do this brief presentation. The legislative tracking chart is just a list of the bills that the board took a position on at the March meeting, just there for reference, and happy to answer any questions. If not, I will turn it back over to you and open it up for public comment.
Members, are there any comments? I'm checking the participant side. Here we see if there are any hands. Seeing that there are no hands, if we can ask the public for any comments.
This is the moderator. At the request of the committee, I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon at the lower bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Proceeding with agenda item number 4, update, discussion, and possible action on legislation on which the California Board of Accountancy has taken a position. Mr. Ibarra, Deanne, would you take us through the bills under agenda item number 4?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. To assist the Legislative Committee, or LC, with the status of the bills discussed by the full board in March, I'm going to provide a brief overview of each bill, and if action is needed, I will identify what staff are recommending. We'll begin with Assembly Bill 29. AB 29 would require that any public meeting notice issued pursuant to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act must also include all writings or materials in connection with a matter subject to discussion or consideration at that meeting. The bill prohibits a state body from distributing or discussing materials that do not comply with this requirement. During the March meeting, CBA members inquired if there would be any exceptions for items such as updates to legislation within the 72-hour window. CBA staff has raised this issue with the author's office, and the issue was acknowledged. However, no amendments have been made at this time. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its watch position and no action is required. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next bill.
Are there any feedback from members or questions? Bear with me. Okay, I see no raised hands. Can we ask the public for any comments?
This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, the instructions are on the screen. Click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Mr. Ibarra, if you can proceed to the next item.
Thank you. The next item is Assembly Bill 107. AB 107 would require a board within the Department of Consumer Affairs, or DCA, to, after appropriate investigation, issue a temporary license to practice a profession to a military-related applicant who meets specified criteria. There were no amendments to this bill. However, the provisions of the bill do not apply to a board, including the CBA, that has a process under which these individuals are able to receive expedited temporary authorization to practice while meeting state-specific requirements for a period of at least 1 year. Staff recommend the CBA maintain a support position on this bill and no action is needed. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next bill.
Any questions from the members or feedback? Seeing none, if we can open it up for any public comments, please.
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Mr. Ibarra, if we can proceed to the next item.
Thank you. The next item is Assembly Bill 225. AB 225 impacts specified boards within the Department of Consumer Affairs regarding the issuance of a temporary license to an applicant who meets specified requirements. The bill was amended after the March CBA meeting and no longer includes the CBA. Staff recommend the CBA make a motion to discontinue following this bill as it no longer applies to the CBA. With that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back to you for discussion and a possible motion, and I and Assistant Executive Officer Deanne Pierce are happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any comments or motion? Ms. Yentu?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to make a motion for staff recommendation.
Do we have a second? Ms. Salazar?
Second the motion to remove the support position.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Do we have any additional feedback from the members? Ms. Salazar, your hand's up. Okay, seeing no additional hands, if we can ask the public for any comments.
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Reed, will you call for the vote?
George Familet, George Familet,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
and Yin Tu.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Ibarra, if we can proceed to the next item.
Yes, thank you. The next item is Assembly Bill 298. AB 298 is the CBA-sponsored legislation that, amongst other provisions, would allow applicants to sit for the CPA exam prior to completion of educational requirements. The bill was amended on March 30th to incorporate the language approved by the CBA at the March meeting. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its sponsor position on this bill. No action is required at this time. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comment, I can proceed to the next bill.
Are there any any comments from the members or questions? Bear with me because I need to keep clicking here. Seeing none, can we open it up for public comments?
This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Ibarra, if we can move on to the next item.
Thank you. Assembly Bill 646 is next. AB 646 would require a licensing board under DCA, including the CBA, to update information on its website regarding licensees who have had their licenses revoked due to criminal convictions that are subsequently expunged as specified. This bill has not been amended since the March CBA meeting. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its watch position on this bill, and no action is needed. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next bill.
Are there any questions or comments from the members? Okay. I see one hand's up. Ms. Tu?
Yes, I have a just clarifying question. How easy is it to look up? I remember there was some discussion in past board meeting that sometimes it should be very easy for anybody to look up these kind of information. I haven't experienced having to look up if somebody's license is revoked or anything like that. For the general public, is it pretty easy?
Ms. Leon, I can respond to that question if you're okay with that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tu, on our website, we have what's called a license lookup feature. And it's a search mechanism, so you can search any licensee and pull up the status of their license. There would also be a link to any enforcement actions that have been taken against that individual. We also have a separate function on our website that is specific to enforcement, disciplinary actions against licensees. And that's just another way, if you want to look at only those who have had enforcement action against their license, you can search that as well. Does that answer your question, Ms. Tu, or was that?
Yes, thank you very much for that information, because I am not a CPA, I'm not in the industry, so but most of the time, the people that actually need this information are not CPA, so I just want to make sure that it's on the record how we can go about doing this in a regular, not regular, but in a once in a while, these kind of information out to the public would be very helpful in terms of outreach.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Tu. I agree. I think that's a great fundamental question for people who are trying to figure out how to navigate and get information about various CPAs. So thank you. Okay. Moving on to Mr. Ibarra, if we can proceed to the next item.
Thank you. Next up is Assembly Bill 1026. AB 1026 would require DCA and any board within DCA to grant a 50% fee reduction for an initial license to an applicant who provides satisfactory evidence that they have served as an active duty member of the United States Armed Forces or the California National Guard and was honorably discharged. This bill has not been amended since the March CBA meeting. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its support position on this bill and no action is needed. Madam Chair, unless there are questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next bill.
Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public?
This is the moderator. I'm opening the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed, Mr. Ibarra. If we can move on to the next item.
And this is the moderator. I apologize to interrupt you both. Ms. Leon, if you can speak a little bit louder and closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Definitely. Mr. Ibarra, if we can proceed to the next item.
Yes, thank you. Assembly Bill 1386. AB 1386 would prohibit a board within DCA from charging an initial application fee or an initial license issuance fee to an applicant who meets the existing expedited licensing requirements for spouses, domestic partners, or other legal partners of members of the United States Armed Forces with an assigned duty station in California. Since the March meeting, the bill was amended to also waive the initial examination fee if the examination is administered by the board. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its support position on this bill and no action is necessary. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next bill.
Are there any questions or comments from the members? Seeing none, can we open it up for any public comments, please?
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ibarra, I think we have one last item on this agenda.
Correct, thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 772. SB 772 would prohibit any board, bureau, or commission within the DCA, including the CBA, from assessing an administrative fine for a violation of the applicable Licensing Act or any adopted regulation if the violation is a minor violation as specified. This bill has not been amended since the March CBA meeting and also failed to make it out of committee, turning it into a 2-year bill. Staff recommend the CBA maintain its watch position on this bill and no action is needed. Madam Chair, unless there are any questions from members or public comments, I can proceed to the next agenda item.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the members? Okay, seeing none, if we can ask for any public comments.
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 5, review and consideration of possible positions on legislation. Mr. Ibarra, if you can please begin with item 5A, Assembly Bill 885.
Absolutely, thank you. AB 885 would revise the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act to encourage greater accessibility for both the public and members of a state body when state bodies elect to use teleconferencing technology. The bill would define teleconferencing as participation in a meeting both audibly and visually. Under provisions of the bill, members of a state body participating remotely would count towards a quorum and would only require public disclosure of the designated primary physical meeting location from which the public may participate. Madam Chair, staff have been informed by the author's office that this is now a 2-year bill. However, the office welcomes any potential support for the proposal. With this in mind, staff proposed the CBA make a motion to adopt a support position on AB 885. I will turn it back to the chair for discussion and possible motion.
I would like to make a motion to take a support position on this bill. I ask for a second. Ms. Carrion?
I second the motion. Although, for point of order or clarification, can the chair make a motion to support a bill? Can the chair running the meeting make a motion to support a bill?
Hi, good morning. This is Patty Bowers. Yes, it is fine for the chair to make a motion.
Okay, all right. I also had my hand up for discussion.
Awesome. Thank you for the second. Let's open it up for discussion.
So I just want to say that I'm really glad that this bill was introduced. It took, unfortunately, it took the pandemic occurring to inspire, the government and other bodies to adopt the technology that is existing that really makes participation much greater and easier for the public and also for the individuals that volunteer to serve as members of boards and commissions. I think that revising the Bagley-Keene Act and, then that will trickle down into helping other municipal bodies revise their public meeting acts. It'll open up participation to a much greater body of individuals. I also think that, for the Board of Accountancy, I think this is particularly important because we note that there are several of our committees that we are really struggling with recruiting people to volunteer to serve as members of the committees. And so I think opening this up so that there is this option that individuals don't have to sacrifice their work or their, other commitments to be able to serve on committees that provide really important functions. I think this is a really helpful and important advancement. And I hope that in our support letter that we really make note of how this can be very beneficial to us in being able to recruit additional members of the profession to participate in the work of our committees. So I just want to make sure that our statement provides that, states that support as well, that rationale for the support as well.
Thank you. And I would echo that. I think in light of where we are in 2021, being more flexible makes sense, and it's going to open up a greater pool of candidates in the future. For me, as I was thinking about it, I was like, I just want the flexibility, the option. I still miss the in-person, but having the option, you're going to get a wider pool. It's going to be, I think, overall better for board members. So any other additional feedback? Ms. Pierce, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Ms. Leon. Just wanted to recognize the comments made by Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines and indicate that we will certainly capture those comments and incorporate those into our letter when we send it off to the author's office. Thank you.
I see Ms. Salazar, your hand's up.
Thanks. And I want to say thank you, Carrie Ann, for that perspective. It is so important. And you know, I guess this will probably be in the letter, but I'd be remiss in not pointing out, my hope is that it will help the public participate so that our licensees can just pop in and listen to an issue and they won't have the delay of needing to wait for minutes to be drafted and presented at a future meeting. So hopefully this will be a good thing for consumers and licensees as well, and be another side benefit to you know, making our committees more visible to the public, also just making their voice more visible to us. So thank you.
All right, seeing no more hands raised, if we can ask for any public comments.
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
And Ms. Reed, if you don't mind calling for the vote.
George Tramelette,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Ariel Page,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
and Yin Tu.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. If we can move to the next item, Mr. Ibarra.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to turn the next two bills over to Assistant Executive Officer Deanne Pierce. Thank you.
Good morning and thank you. I am going to be providing a presentation on Assembly Bill 1316. This agenda item was sent out to members. For those who requested a hard copy, you would have gotten it on Tuesday. For those requested an electronic copy, it was emailed out Tuesday morning. So I'm hoping that everybody has that. If you didn't receive it, if you want to let me know and I can have staff get it out to you. This is a fairly large bill, and so I just appreciate your patience and flexibility as I work my way through the different components of it. So Assembly Bill 1316 would establish new requirements for non-classroom-based charter schools in the areas of auditing and accounting standards, the funding determination process, adding requirements to the contracting process, independent study program requirements, required teacher-to-pupil ratios, limiting authorization of non-classroom-based charters by small districts, and adding specificity to the authorizer oversight process as specified. According to the author's office, the proposals contained within this bill seek to address weaknesses in the state's education system in the areas of pupil data tracking, auditing, and school finance. The bill primarily impacts the California Education Code. However, there are two provisions that relate to the CBA in the areas of continuing education and peer review. So let me just provide a little overview of those two areas. As it relates to continuing education for school auditors, in Section 12 of the bill on page 20, which is included as Attachment 1, there's a proposal to require that by January 1, 2023, the CBA, in consultation with the Chief Executive Officer of the County Office Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, adopt regulations requiring specific CE criteria as a condition of license renewal for CPAs who audit local educational agencies. The regulations would require CPAs who are engaged in financial and compliance audits of local education agencies to complete 12 of the existing 80 CE hours required for active status license renewal in the areas of accounting, auditing, or related subjects pertaining to local educational agencies. There are specific provisions of what the CE must include, and the CE requirement shall apply whether the local educational agency is a government agency or a nonprofit organization. For peer review, in section 13 of the bill, page 21 of attachment 1, there is a proposal to require that by January 1, 2023, the CBA, in consultation with the Chief Executive Officer of the County Office Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, adopt regulations requiring peer review prior to an audit firm performing audits of local educational agencies. The regulations must address specific minimum requirements for the peer review program, and the provisions shall apply whether it is a local educational agency, is a government agency, or a nonprofit organization. Starting on page 2 in the analysis, we have included background information to assist members in understanding the role, process, and requirements that presently exist as it relates to audits of local educational agencies, the current continuing education and peer review requirements, and also the mission of the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team. I want to highlight a couple of background items specific to continuing education and peer review to provide more foundation for member deliberations. For continuing education, the CBA has adopted various regulations to implement CE requirements designed to maintain and increase licensees' competency in practice or in public accounting. Presently, licensees must complete 80 hours of continuing education every 2 years as part of renewing a license in an active status. The 80 hours includes a minimum amount of hours in ethics education and a minimum amount of hours yearly. Additionally, as part of the required 80 hours, if licensees plan, direct, conduct substantial portions of field work, or report on financial or compliance audits of a governmental agency, they must complete 24 of the 80 hours in subject areas of governmental accounting, auditing, or related subjects. And the CBA's definition of governmental agency would include a local educational agency. For licensees who are required to complete the 24 hours in governmental auditing, they are also required to complete a minimum of 4 hours in fraud CE. Moving on to peer review, the legislature has, since 2010, required accounting firms, which include licensees operating as sole proprietorships, to complete peer review once every 3 years as a condition for license renewal. The CBA adopted regulations to implement the peer review requirement, which, among other provisions, identifies the minimum requirements a peer review program provider must have for purposes of administering peer reviews. And it also states that the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants peer review program meets the minimum requirements as adopted by the CBA. Identified in the analysis are various implementation questions regarding both the CE and peer review components of the bill that the board may wish to consider. Those include the population of impacted licensees, the current professional standards that require licensees to take steps necessary to ensure they are qualified to undertake specified work, existing CE requirements for governmental auditing, existing peer review requirements for governmental audits, and the deviation from national standards to implement peer review. Additionally, staff has prepared questions, which I believe start on page 8, that the CBA may wish to obtain answers to get greater clarity from the author's office. And following the issuance of this agenda item, we identified a few other questions which we have displayed in the PowerPoint slide. I'm going to discuss each item with the chair's permission and then ask for member input following each question. Before I begin with question one, however, I do want to mention that the analysis was sent to the author's office for their review earlier this week, and staff have been in contact with the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, and they are open to discussing the concerns identified in the analysis that I'm preparing to discuss. So with that, with the chair's permission, I can start with question one and provide an overview, and then turn it back to you and ask for any member feedback or guidance for that question.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. Please proceed.
Thank you. So the first one is creating CE focused primarily on the auditing of local education agencies may not address the issues raised by the author's office. The author's fact sheet and the Assembly Education Committee analysis point to fraud as the basis for needing the increased CE. The CE being proposed will provide an increased understanding of the requirements for auditing an LEA, a local education agency, but may not address the fraud. The CBA already maintains a CE requirement specifically related to the prevention, detection, and/or reporting of fraud affecting financial statements. So as we continue working with the author's office, this is one of the areas where we can communicate to the author and possibly suggest that this particular component of the CE may not actually address the issue at hand. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair and for any member discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions before we move on to the next question.
Any comments or questions from the members? This first observation for feedback. Seeing none, I think the members agree, and let's proceed.
Apologies, Ms. Leon, this is Deanne. I didn't hear that last comment from you.
Let's proceed with the second observation. There's no feedback from the members.
Perfect, thank you so much. Moving on to question two, require the State Controller's Office to confirm completion of training prior to approval to perform the local education audits. So there's a mechanism right now where the State Controller's Office does have a list of approved licensees to perform these audits. Given the limited number of accounting firms and CPAs operating in this environment, the author may wish to require the CE be a part of the SCO review process, as opposed to requiring the CBA to adopt regulations affecting such a small group. The CE could continue to apply to the CE requirement for license renewal, but the concept of adding prescribed CE within the Accountancy Act and CBA regulations would not be needed. So I'll turn it back to the chair for any member discussion and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments from members or concerns with that feedback? Okay, seeing none, please proceed to number 3, Ms. Pierce.
Thank you. Question 3, should the subject areas related to the CE found in the Educational Code section be removed and added to the Accountancy Act, and do the 12 hours apply to the governmental auditing? As we communicate with the author's office, if they continue to believe that the additional CE is required, we could ask that the underlying subject areas be placed in our Business and Professions Code for consistency with our other CE requirements that are enforced and adopted by the CBA. So I will, let me see. In the prior version of this bill was just amended on May 4th, but there was a prior version dated April 14th. In that particular version, the 12 hours that they were proposing were contemplated as part of the 24 required for governmental auditing. With this amended version, it's now, the way we are interpreting it, part of the 80 hours required 80 CE hours required for license renewal. So we can reach out to the author's office with those two requests in our communication as well. And I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. I think that's a good observation. Question, members, do you have any feedback? Okay, Ms. Pierce, let's proceed to number 4.
Thank you. Item number 4 is to request an amendment to remove the term auditor from the Accountancy Act. Throughout the existing and amended sections of the bill, the word auditor is regularly used. For purposes of this bill, it appears the term is used synonymously with CPA. This includes adding the word to the Accountancy Act as part of the revisions to Business and Professions Code Section 5027A8. As this word is not used in the Accountancy Act, and to maintain consistency with terminology found in the Act regarding CE, should the CE requirements continue to be mandated, we may wish the author to amend the language to say licensees. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair for any comments or questions.
Any feedbacks on this feedback? Okay, seeing none, let's continue. Ms. Pierce?
Thank you. One of the provisions in the bill requires us to adopt regulations. The proposed language says to adopt regulations by January 1, 2023. So we may want to just obtain clarification from the author as to whether adopt as used in the bill means to have those regulations in place by that date, or if the board has just adopted the proposed language, because those are two different concepts or provisions in the rulemaking process, and they equal two different time frames. And so it would just be getting clarification regarding what they mean specifically on that time frame. And with that, I'm sorry.
No, sorry to interrupt.
I was just going to say I'll turn it back over to the chair for any questions. Apologies.
Any feedback or comments on this particular suggestion, the members? Okay, seeing none, let's proceed, Ms. Pierce.
Question 6 is regarding the timing of peer review. One of the things that we may wish to engage in dialogue with the author's office, as noted in the section, the peer review does not seek to evaluate the engagements themselves, but more how the engagements conform to accounting firms' system of quality control. Peer review reports, regardless of the final outcome, do not identify specific engagements. Additionally, the CBA may wish to inquire with the author's office regarding the timing of peer reviews. AB 1316 requires that a licensee, as a condition of performing an audit of a local educational agency, complete a peer review. However, a peer review is typically done after audit work is completed to ensure it meets requisite standards. As structured, it could create an impediment for accounting firms to engage in this work if these firms are not already performing the work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair for any feedback or questions.
Any feedback on this item, or overall something that you would like to be included? Okay. See no hands, Ms. Pierce. Oh, I see one hand. Ms. Carrie-Ann Farrell-Hines, if you can please proceed.
Yes, I know that the staff there's not a position that's stated on this. However, can we get some, feedback or leanings, perspective as to a direction, that the staff, has about this, this piece of legislation, just to help us understand, because these are some significant and important revisions, but just because they're revisions recommended doesn't mean that, the staff necessarily has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily say whether the staff has an opinion about a bill. So can you provide us with some perspective on this, particularly for those of us who are not accountants?
Ms. Pierce, I see your hand, and then Ms. Salazar.
Oh, I'll please, Ms. Salazar, go right ahead, and then I'm happy to respond to Ms. Farrell-Hines' question.
So my question for the staff is, if it's possible to get a sense for whether or not this committee and the board how fast is this bill moving? Will there be an opportunity in May? I'm sorry, we are already in May. At our next meeting, I guess it would be June, to look at this again. So I guess maybe that's my question, which would probably be important as to where I think I would recommend the committee move. Thank you.
With the chair's permission, I can respond to both questions. This is Deanne.
Please proceed, Ms. Deanne.
Thank you. With regards to, this will probably address both questions, but with regards to Ms. Farrell-Hines' question, staff don't have a recommendation on a position. I think that, and I welcome Executive Officer Bowers, and our enforcement chief is here as well to also contribute to this answer. But I think there's a lot of questions that we have, a lot of clarifications that we would need before staff are in a position to recommend a position either way. I don't know, based on some of the wording that is included in the bill, it could be that the author's office may not have a clear understanding of how our particular provisions work, especially the way it's worded in the CE and also in the peer review part. So not knowing where they're at on those particular provisions, I think that providing answers or proposing these questions that I've been covering to the author and some of the affiliated groups to get clarification on it, I think that will provide us a great amount of insight. And then that information can be presented to the committee and to the board at the July board meeting. And then at that point, we may be in a better position in terms of providing a recommendation. I think right now there's just a lot of uncertainty on what they are trying to accomplish. Or we know what they want to accomplish, but knowing if this is the right way to go about accomplishing it. And I think that in response to Ms. Salazar's question, where it's at in the process right now is, as of yesterday, it was at the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So it has not passed out of appropriations yet. I can't tell you how fast this is going. That unfortunately, I can't answer that question. I would suspect that when we have our meeting in July, that we will still have an opportunity to take a position at that time and share our position then with the fiscal or potentially a policy committee. But I can't say that 100%, but that's kind of what my thought process is. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions that, or any follow-up that Ms. Farrell-Hines or Ms. Salazar has.
I see Ms. Carrie-Ann, your hand went up.
Yeah, the one question I had is, I don't recall what the legislative schedule is. So is there what the deadline is for that, for bills to, move to the other house or to turn into 2-year bills? Are we coming up on that deadline for them to make that decision?
Madam Chair, this is Deanne. Would you like me to respond to that question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just pulled up the calendar on the deadlines, and I think that the last day for the fiscal committees to get the bills out is the 21st of May, if I recall correctly. So towards the end of this month. And then it needs to get out of the assembly in the first week of June, I believe. But I can certainly follow up with you and confirm what those timeframes are.
I'm sorry to jump in. I asked because that means that we would not have a opportunity to make make comment unless it turns into a 2-year bill. Is that right?
Madam Chair, would you mind, this is Deanne, if I respond to that question?
Yes, please.
We'll have a chance to respond. If it makes it out of the assembly side, we'll have a chance to provide our position, if we so choose one, when it goes to the Senate side. So it would still, it may or may not turn into a 2-year bill, I don't know, but we would still have an opportunity to provide our position, concerns as it goes over to the Senate side.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pierce. All right, seeing no, I see the hand went up. Go ahead, Ms. Salazar.
So this is really just a comment. So I looking at this, if we're ready just to have general comment, is I appreciate the thoughtfulness the staff has put into the analysis and the questions, and I absolutely support taking these and continuing to work with the author to seek the clarification, because it sounds like the analysis is there, but the questions have not yet been posed to them. So I would support staff continuing to work with the author's office. And it kind of sounds like with it moving to one body of the legislature, potentially quickly, this could be appropriate for maybe a watch, because there are so many impacts to the language currently in the bill, to our rules and our regulations that will require action. So I guess that is a long-winded way of saying I would make a motion to watch it and request that the staff continue to work with the author's office so that we can go on record as being actively engaged with it.
Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines. Thank you, Ms. Salazar.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Pierce?
I just wanted to indicate that depending on how the speed in which this is moving through and when committee hearings are held, it is possible that we could have a special board meeting specific to this bill if we needed to. That's something that we don't have to do a 10-day meeting notice on. It's abbreviated. I believe it's 48 hours, if I recall correctly. So that's also another kind of tool we have in our toolbox if something happens and we need to meet sooner than the July board meeting.
I see 3 hands up. I don't know if you want to provide more feedback, Ms. Salazar or Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines?
I do, and why don't I provide my discussion and then Katrina can respond. I actually was going to suggest a support if amended position because I feel like this is a significant and important bill, and I think it's really important for us to be really heavily engaged in the revision of the bill to ensure that the best bill comes out possible. And I worry that adopting a watch position on the bill may signal to the authors that we are a little less, we're more neutral than we really are. And so I just wonder whether it's a better tactic or strategy, particularly given what Deanne just said about us potentially being able to call a special meeting I wonder whether taking either a support if amended or oppose unless amended position signals more strongly what our position is and puts us in better position to, to be engaged around the revision of the bill. I just don't want us to be left out of this, and I would be, it would be disconcerting for a bill of this significant impact on the work that we do for us to not be really one of the leading advisors on the bill, for our board to be not to be in a position of being one of the leading advisors on this bill.
So are you amending your second? I just want to make sure I'm following the procedure here.
Well, I wanted to let my colleague, respond to it because I do believe that, her perspective in the profession is really, helpful to me. And, so I'm interpreting it. I may be putting more weight on it than is necessary. And I just want to, I'm asking if it would be appropriate to, revise it, but I'm not digging in about it. I just would, I wanted to make sure we're having a discussion about it.
Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Salazar, thoughts?
Thank you. And I appreciate that, and my peer also opening it up to the dialogue and seconding it. So, my take on our history is, first of all, I don't see a watch as being mutually exclusive with our committee or our board's desire to support fraud, quality auditing, and all of those things. Our board, my perspective is that we have tried in some ways not to be overprescribed. Every minute rule change creates more barriers for the people that we need to license. So, I think I am very comfortable with our CE, that we have peer review. We might need to make some tweaks, but if every industry comes in and says, I want a carve out for this and I want a carve out for this, it doesn't mean it's not important, but what we've granted is the flexibility for our auditors to make the right choices with their education to support the client work that they're doing. So I'm concerned about moving away from that. And then in general, just think we need to be very judicious about using our supports and our oppositions for bills. So I am hugely in favor of working with the author to find ways to do it in a way that's appropriate, but I also don't want to be necessarily advocating for a lot of carve-outs that are industry specific for me. So, because I believe that we have a structure in place that is supportive of the educational needs. And there may be other ways we can support the efforts through education, through articles, through reminding people about the importance of those. So just feedback. So I do stand by my watch, actually.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Salazar, for the explanation. Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines, are you okay if we proceed?
Yes, and I think Deanne has her hand up too still.
Ms. Pierce, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback that Ms. Farrell-Hines and Ms. Salazar have provided. It's really been, I think, helpful. A couple of things that I wanted to mention just in response to those comments is, and I agree, it's completely up to the board in terms of, which position they want to take, if any position. This bill is a really large bill, and we're a very small sliver of it. There are some components that I think, we definitely need to get some additional clarification on. For example, on the peer review requirements, there's some interpretation issues with regards to how that would impact the current program, which we use national peer review standards as part of our peer review program. So there's been discussions or preliminary communications with Cal CPA, but this may be something that we need to also work with AICPA on as well, since they're our recognized peer review program provider. One of the other items on the CE part of it is there's nothing that is preventing the licensees from completing that CE now. In fact, in our 24 hours of governmental CE, there's actually a statement in there that kind of supports them completing CE that is specific to the environment in which they work. So I just, I share that. I certainly understand, Ms. Farrell-Hines, kind of where your thought process is, but I do think that there are some significant issues that we may want to seek clarification on before we were to go with either a support or opposed position. So I just offer that up for consideration.
Thank you. And I just want to, manage time. We're 20 minutes over, and I want to keep us moving. So I see Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines, your hand is still up.
Yes, and Ms. Pierce mentioned the professional agencies, and I don't know if Cal CPA or AICPA have submitted comments on this at all, just for some additional perspective.
Yeah, I'll open it up to public comments in 1 minute. All right, anything else? Okay, Ms. Pierce, your hand went down. We're good. Excellent. So I think Ms. Pierce, you received a lot of great feedback and providing guidance, clarity, getting our questions answered to the corresponding office. And we have a motion on the floor to take a watch position with a second. So I'm going to proceed and open it up for public comments, please.
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A feature. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. And the instructions are being referenced on your screen. I do have an individual identified as Jason Fox. Jason, I will unmute your microphone now.
Thank you.
Hi,
Mr.
Jason.
Fox.
Jason Fox, the California Society of CPAs. First, the staff did a great job putting an analysis together on a pretty meaty bill here, and so a lot of thoughtful comments and analysis. We're kind of in the same boat, and we've had conversations with the board staff and the legislative staff on this issue, trying to figure out the lay of the land, and we're also pulling together some CPAs that operate in the school audit space to get some of their feedback. So we don't have a formal position, but we share a lot of the same concerns and questions that the board put in their analysis and that was just discussed. And I think the board's watch position is fair because I think over the next few weeks, through some conversations, we'll have a better understanding of what policy objectives they're trying to accomplish and if there's other options of getting there without necessarily undoing or messing with the current model, how CPAs are oversighted in the state of California. So I think we're certainly engaged, and there's a lot of conversations on this, and we're hopeful that we can address those and let the legislature address the bigger policy question of how schools are oversighted. But as long as we can figure out how CPAs fit in that role and we're okay with that, then I think that would be a good approach. So happy to answer any questions if there are any, but we're certainly in kind of the same situation the board is.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Let me double check here. I can't see everybody's hands as easily enough. Okay, no question and no feedback. Thank you so much. Are there any additional public comments?
This is the moderator. No additional requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please proceed. Ms. Reed, can we call for a vote?
George Familet,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell-Hines,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
Yes.
and Yin Tu. Yin two. All right, the motion carries.
Thank you so much. Great discussion. All right, we have one more item, C, Senate Bill 607. Ms. Deanne Pierce, I believe you're going to be covering this.
Yes, thank you so much. Senate Bill 607 contains several provisions impacting various boards within DCA. However, the one relevant to the CBA would waive all fees charged by a board associated with the application and initial license for military-related applicants as specified in the bill. Madam Chair, staff recommend the CBA make a motion to adopt a support position on these provisions, and I will turn it back for discussion and a possible motion.
Any feedback, comments, or does someone want to make a motion in support of a watch? No, I mean, in support of a support. All right, I don't see any hands up. I am happy to make the motion to take a support position on this Senate bill. Do we have a second? I see Ms. Carrie Ann Farrell Hines, your hand up. Thank you. We have a second from Ms. Farrell Hines. Any additional comments from the members? Seeing none. Sorry, Ms. Salazar, did you want to say something? I see. Please go ahead.
You know, I think I'm going to vote no on the support only because, you know, I'm neutral on it. And again, I'm not really sure that it's important for our board to necessarily support it. I do support it. It's great. I don't have any issues with it, but I'm not sure that this rises to the need to go on the record with it. And so that's sort of my rationale. So there you go.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Any additional comments? Okay, can we ask the public for any feedback?
This is the moderator. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Reed, if you will call for a vote.
George Familet,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Soshi Leon,
Yes.
Ariel Pay,
Yes.
Katrina Salazar,
No.
and Yin Tu. The motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Trying to figure out. We're moving on to agenda item number 6. Review and possible consideration of positions on legislation. The California Board of Accountancy is monitoring. Mr. Ibarra, please present the agenda item.
Thank you so much. Staff continue to monitor the bills that are listed before you, and if any are amended in a way that directly impacts the CBA, an analysis will be prepared and presented at a future meeting. Madam Chair, no action is required on this item, but we are happy to answer any questions the members may have regarding these bills. I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ibarra. Any questions, feedback on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, can we get comments from the public, please?
Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to the last agenda item, number 7. Items for the next meeting. Do any members wish to request that any items be placed on the next legislative committee meeting agenda? Okay, I don't see any hands. Seeing that there are none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.